Hello again, and welcome to Boxed 1 year later. As part of our 7 weekend series, in between all the wonderful new premieres of dancers in boxed confined spaces and creating 2 minutes of adventurous choreography, we also had the wonderful opportunity of sharing films, short films made by dancers during the pandemic. So these films were not commissioned or produced by us, but they were generously lent to the Nartaki platform so we could continue the idea of what dancers were doing during this very confusing and often frightening time of being quarantined globally, worldwide. Remember that we're talking of what happened in the series a whole year ago. So we had weekend showcases called Boxed and Beyond. Beyond meaning we were reaching to dancers all across the world who were then sharing some very special films that they had made. We begin with a very, very active, adventurous, intrepid artist, a former Bharatanatyam dancer, now a contemporary producer, and the founder of Thresh, Preeti Vasudevan, who lives in New York City. Almost as soon as the pandemic hit, she was creating some beautiful work. Some were commissioned, but some she was the catalyst of. Not that many people were thinking of the demographic of younger audiences. But here was Preeti, and let's watch as the red curtain opens.
Once upon a time, there was a little elephant named Imbo. Imbo was a curious elephant and loved to explore the world around her. She wondered, why is the grass green? Where does water come from? Imbo had an unusually short trunk for an elephant. Some days, when she felt ashamed of being different, she would escape from her herd and wander the forest. In the forest by herself, she discovered a long tail peeking out from behind a rock. This is how Imbo met Ellie the mouse. Ellie had an unusually long tail for a mouse and came to the forest because he felt anxious around other mice. Ellie was very shy, but very smart, and could answer all of Imbo's questions about who lived in the grass or inside small places. And Imbo was happy to put Ellie on her back and show him what life was like in the trees. And so, Ellie and Imbo became friends. They didn't tell anyone about their friendship. Elephants are not friends with mice. Imbo and Ellie lived near a beautiful village. One day, there was a powerful earthquake. The ground shook violently, and all of the houses in the village were destroyed. Imbo watched from the fields as the villagers left to find a new place to live. Slowly, the broken houses of the village became homes for the mice of the forest. the mice found the village very comfortable. They were free to dance, sing and play together in the streets, and were happy. There was a lake near the village, where Imbo and the herd of elephants went regularly to drink water and take baths. The elephants began travelling through the abandoned village to reach the lake. But as the elephants crossed through the village, the ground trembled just as it did during the earthquake. This was terrible for the mice. Their new homes fell apart and they had to run so as not to be crushed by the elephants' feet. They cried out to the elephants as they passed, but the elephants heard nothing but squeaks. The mice worried. "Oh, what will we do? What will we do? Elephants are too big to listen to mice." The next day, Ellie ran to find Imbo in the forest. He explained to her what had happened. Imbo didn't know that Ellie or any mice lived in that village. For such a curious elephant, she was annoyed with herself that she hadn't paid attention. Imbo decided that she would take Ellie to meet the Elephant Queen. "I'm scared, Imbo," cried Ellie, shaking. "Elephants do not listen to mice." "Oh, don't be silly, Ellie," said Imbo. "I will put you on my back so that you are just as tall as the elephants." The Elephant Queen was surprised to see a mouse on Imbo's back. "What is a mouse doing on top of an elephant?" she asked. Ellie explained respectfully. "Oh, Queen, we live in the abandoned village, and as you travel through it, our homes shake, and we are worried that your feet will crush us. Please think of the mice and choose a different path to the lake. If you do so, even as creatures of our size, we promise to return the favor in your time of need." The Queen of Elephants laughed. "Oh, tiny mouse, we will never need anything from you, but I will honor your request and your bravery, and we will change our path to the lake. You will not have to worry about any danger caused by us anymore." Ellie was very grateful and thanked the Queen of the Elephants for her consideration. The herd found a new path and left the mice in peace. And so, time passed. One day, Imbo was taking a bath in the lake when she looked up to see a group of people. As she looked closer, she saw that they were poachers. The herd was becoming tangled in nets set in the lake. All of the elephants, including their queen, became trapped. The elephants struggled so hard they shook the lake, but could not set themselves free from the strong ropes. Little Imbo looked around, trying to think of what to do. Who would help the elephants, the biggest animals of the forest? Suddenly, she had an idea. Imbo ran to the village to find Ellie and told him about her trapped herd. The mice came out of their homes, angry to see an elephant back in their town. Ellie quickly explained to them everything that had happened and about the hunters' nets. Hearing Ellie's tale, the mice agreed. "We must return the favor. We should go immediately to help them." The mice hurried to the elephants. They used their strong teeth to nibble and bite through the thick ropes. They gnawed and chewed, and slowly the elephants broke from the nets and finally were free. The elephants trumpeted in celebration and thanked the mice for saving them. The queen lifted Ellie onto Imbo's back with her trunk. Ellie and Imbo, she said, you had the wisdom to look outside of your world and trust someone who was very different from you. And you were brave to ask for help. Your courage and imagination have saved us all. And so, the elephants and mice became great friends. And that is why we say, make friends, however strong or weak they be. Remember the captive elephants that the mice set free.
Preeti, that was fabulous, and welcome to the show. You know, you've been amongst the most prolifically productive dancer producers during this past year of the pandemic. And I particularly loved the Red Curtain Project. So I want you to quickly run us through why you decided to do a work focused on children. Every other dancer was doing work focused on themselves.
Well, thank you so much for that, Anita, and also for your support all this while. Very quickly, when the pandemic hit, everything shut down, which also meant that schools shut down and children were with parents, and we did not know how to plan for the summer that was coming up, where children go and spend time with their grandparents. So I have a child, and immediately I thought, well, what do we do, when we're all feeling very down and out? And I thought, well, we love to have home cooking, soul food. When you feel down, when you're ill, you like to have home food. And I thought, as an artist, what is it that you go for? What is soul food for artists? And I thought, well, stories. And the stories took me back to my childhood. My grandaunt, my grandparents telling me, feeding me food and telling me stories. And I think you have that memory too. So I thought about my daughter and what she'd be missing. And I thought about all the children who I've been working with over the years, on and off. And I thought this is a time when intergenerationally we should meet. And the food is stories. So we decided to actually seek stories for children in the younger age bracket, between 6 and 12, so that they do not feel isolated or distanced, and they have something to share with their grandparents and their parents, and talk about their roots and things that normally would not get talked about, even if they met in person today. So that's how Red Curtain Project started, and it was really, really focused towards children and families around the world.
And how did you get Yo-Yo Ma to say yes to the collaboration? One thinks he's so distant, he's such a superstar, and that he's unapproachable.
Well, first and foremost, I must say Yo-Yo Ma is the most approachable human you'd ever meet. He's like a child himself. And I've been working with the Silk Road for over 10 years now, the ensemble he founded more than 20 years ago. And I've gotten to know him on and off through the years. And every time we met, we both would be like children, laughing and talking, to the point where his producers have to, separate us because we would start chatting immediately. There is something that I think both of us share, is the joy and love that children have for things that are new. And he put it very beautifully across to me, called wonder. He says, nobody should lose wonder, but that's what children teach us. And I think it's a very, very important thing that we have to remember. And so when Yo-Yo saw the first story or so, he texted me immediately and he said, I love this. I want to do something. Shall we talk? Because for some time we've been talking about, shall we do something, as artists. And then I jumped on that, and we got on a call. And he said that when his son was very young, he loved the Panchatantras that came through the Middle East as Dimna and Kalila stories.
Yes.
And then I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then I said, well, choose a story that resonates most for you. And he said, look, I like the mouse and the elephant story. And he said, I'm going to create a script because when he went to Indonesia, they gave him a little stuffed elephant as a gift. And so based on the story of the elephant and mouse, the two of us came about the script that you see in Imbo and Ellie, where the elephant has a short trunk and the mouse has a long tail. So during the pandemic and also the very hot political time, he wanted to, through these stories to children, talk about unusual friendships and the importance of diversity. And that's one of the core missions of Red Curtain Project, is the importance of diversity and inclusion and the strength of diversity. So we came upon this idea, went back and forth a few times on the script. And then we got on a Zoom call, which was recorded. We jammed a bit. We improved a bit with each other, asking stories. You'd find that on the website in behind the scenes. We ask each other a lot of questions. And we felt that was important for people to understand the process of two artists, trying to work together. And then I created the story, sent it to him with director's notes as to what I expect from him. And he's so humble, Anita, so humble, answering your previous question, is that he said, please send me a lot of notes. I want to follow your instructions. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. And what I can say about Yo-Yo is that, he's like the biggest Tinkerbell around.
And isn't that lovely? Because the greatest of people still have that, the Tinkerbell, as you say, that sense of wonder, the sense of adbhuta. And that, I think, is really what distinguishes the truly greats, who never really grow up, at least a part of them don't. But I loved all of your Red Curtain projects. I wanted to also talk to you about a very important, and it's political, but it's also so creative, your 100 Years of Lebanon. And your beautiful films, the short films that you've made, because there is so much volatility now in the Middle East, and there's so many, steadfastly held opinions about right and wrong. So it makes it even more poignant when I watch your short films, because we have become a world of binaries, and what you're trying to do is to blur those boundaries. So tell us about that.
Well, 100 Years of Lebanon is very close to my heart, because it's really about the wisdom of elders. And we forget, like you said, it's become so binary. We forget to listen deeply. And we forget what history is about and how we can build resilience through understanding history, through oral narratives. So 100 Years of Lebanon came to us through a special project that was, we were matched like an arranged marriage by the US Embassy in Beirut with a wonderful foundation on interfaith approach to different problems in people's lives in Lebanon, called the Adyan Foundation. And they were trying to celebrate the 100 years of Greater Lebanon in 2020. So when the pandemic hit, they didn't know what to do because everything they planned was in person. And so we showed them the Red Curtain Project. And we said, we're doing digital stories, and they liked it. And then we proposed to them to do 3 stories so that they could test run it and see how they felt about it. And they shared with us the story of the war, Lebanon versus Israel, and about the memories of the senior citizens. And they wanted the youth. They have a youth program called Alwan. And they wanted the youth to understand through these stories the deep ways of grit and resilience. And they try to match different youth with different seniors all around the country. So they were all audio recordings in Arabic. And then they sent us a whole selection with some basic translation. We selected the 3 that we thought were quite different from each other. And then we worked with a proper sort of translator, a voiceover artist, and a composer in Beirut, a wonderful composer called Vajdi Diya. And I spoke to him, and he, being of the younger generation, could completely represent Lebanon as it is now. And as we all know, Lebanon has gone through a huge, huge problem through, I mean, political, the explosion, pandemic, economics. I mean, I don't know how that country is the way it is. It's most beautiful country, most beautiful people. And talk about resilience, they really are an example in today's age for that. So we created the stories for them, and apart from one story where I had artists from New York who I thought represented the characters, and I built and scripted the narrative for them, and we filmed them, and then we merged the voiceover with the English translation. So it was very successful for them, very, very successful for us as a partnership as well, but also very successful for them. They got more with hits and more views than they expected, and we had no clue what to expect either. And they realized that this form of digital storytelling is very key to reaching out to people, even the remotest areas, you know. And people love seeing visual stories, you know, music, narrative, dance, all of that. So that politically also resonated a lot for them, because it was a very crucial time of celebrating their 100 years in a time of great current instability.
You know, as a producer now, and you're artistic director, founder of Thresh, and as the US is opening up and, you know, fully opened up, and you will probably go back into theaters this year and this season, do you see Thresh having a parallel digital life as well? Or will it sort of slowly sort of peter down or quieten down?
The short answer is absolutely. The slightly longer answer is that you know, the pandemic, outside of all the negative things we talk about, has given a lot of riches. It has allowed us to reflect and also to embrace a bigger world than we normally do. As artists, we can get very myopic and confine ourselves to our needs. The pandemic has taught us that, at least me, that, you know, what are the footprints you leave? And the footprints today is a marriage with technology. And I think it's not about getting addicted and becoming a zombie with technology. It's about harnessing technology and and fostering a bigger dialogue. So both our creative productions and our social impact work are going to continue digging deeper into the digital world. And at the same time, we've already started getting into the studio, getting back with our dancers, and restarting our creative productions for the live stage as well.
Thank you so much, Preeti. I look forward to meeting you in New York. I have a scheduled visit coming, and maybe I can drop in on a rehearsal, or maybe one of the dates, your show dates will work for me. Thank you so very much, and all the very best. There were many, many dance artists who were negotiating this new medium during quarantine. What can we possibly do with our handheld devices? Now, one such artist was Kathak dancer Sangita Chatterjee in Delhi. She shared with us a beautiful film called Quest. But ever since then, she didn't stop there. She went on thinking about this new medium, about camera, lights, editing, and technology. And she went on to produce a wonderful dance for camera festival called Chakshu, in which she also created a new film. Watch.
The path is obscure, still I walk. The thread is fragile, still I bind. The time slip by, still my fist holds it tight. I keep walking on the sand dunes in the anticipation of mirage.
That was beautiful, Sangita. So tell me, I saw Quest, very beautiful in its kind of vulnerability. Mirage seems to have you in a more, I would say, self-assured presence. You've tried so many other things, the movements of your eyes, more close-ups, I think. Um, Tell me how different it has been for you, because you are somebody who's really thinking seriously about the digital medium for dance. And you have not put yourself out there at all the festivals or dancing in your living room like the other dancers have done during the pandemic. So, what have been for you the key learning points in making dance for camera?
Thank you so much, Akka, for appreciating Mirage. And yes, I would say, Akka, this past 1 year has been a kind of a revolution for myself, because when I started with Quest, I would honestly say that Quest was something very organic. I never planned it to be a film, but it came out to be a film. And that is when the process started, when I did Quest. And throughout this 1 year, I was, and Quest was kind of, a kind of a motivator from where I learned so many things, how the camera, which becomes a part of your choreography. Because, before the pandemic, we all used to, like, we all are dancers on stage. We never thought that we are going to be, dancing for camera. So it was always camera in perspective of a static eye, which would document our dance. But it is only when I was doing Quest, unknowingly, unconsciously, I saw that how camera is changing my perspective. Many a times I held my camera on my hand and moved around. And I saw that how a static vision image and a moving image while holding a camera is changing the perspective completely. So that is when my quest, with the quest started towards dance and camera, the perspective of camera. And that is how throughout this 1 year, I worked on it and I learned so many things intuitively, because I have not taken any course or anything. But I think intuition and working with it on ground gives you a lot of experiential learning, which has happened with me. And I'm happy that Mirage has been, really appreciated by, dance filmmakers apart from dancers. So in Mirage, I have tried to use the camera as a part of my choreography. It is a tool where it becomes a part of the imagery. It's not a static camera, definitely. But when I was storyboarding it, and when I was thinking about Mirage, I was just trying that how the image of Mirage, the something which is very elusive, something which never stays, a fleeting moment, which we all are going through right now. Because this past 1 year after doing Quest, I was questioning myself that what is this moment that we are going through? It is the living in the moment, it's the fleeting moment. So how can I capture that? So that is when I thought of Mirage. And that is how I think I use the camera in a way that it cannot be recreated for stage for sure. So for me, I have understood stage dance and something for camera is absolutely two different genre altogether. And there is no point. And that is why I think I took a step back from putting myself on regular festivals, because I very initially, in the very beginning, I realized that the same repertoire in front of the digital medium is not fit. It's not the way that we can put our work forward. There has to be a different way of looking at our work. So that is how I thought that I will not go for do my regular repertoire. I will change the content for the digital medium.
I think that it's very valuable, Sangita, because dancers are going to have to actually negotiate and make friends with this medium, where they have to a certain extent, give up the kind of control they feel when they're on stage, because it's all sort of up to them. And here you have the camera, and the editing after that is really what creates a final choreography. So thank you so much for your thoughts. And I want to wish you all the best. And I look forward to more festivals like you have so thoughtfully planned. And I know that there's still, we're on a learning curve, but I see you as one of the leaders. So thank you and congratulations. It's always refreshing to hear candid thoughts from a young dancer. I'm talking about Diya Naidu in Bangalore. She has been heard and she has expressed her feelings of how she feels about being a dance artist, from the classical world to the contemporary world. And during the pandemic, she's been very, very active. The film she shared with us a year ago was beautiful and was called Touch. Touch, a sensation that has been denied to us for now over a year. Well, since then, Diya has not rested. She's gone off in various new areas, some of them in cutting-edge technology. So here we have a glimpse of what Diya Naidu has been up to over this past year. Hi, Diya, and welcome back a whole year later, because, we were so moved by your film Touch. I mean, even now, but definitely a year earlier, we couldn't touch anybody, right? We were told we are not allowed to touch. And that very simple, really simple emotion that was denied to us was very, very poignant when the film played. So congratulations for that. But, you've been going in so many different directions. So tell us, for me, the most exciting is this marriage of technology and dance. So come on, bring us up to date.
So, I mean, I guess I play different roles because I'm a performer, a dancer, but I'm also a choreographer. And then by default, I kind of get into some kinds of cultural management simply because there isn't enough people to do the job in my field. So as a performer, I was pulled into the virtual reality project that you're talking about. And I've been very fortunate to work with Jobin, which is the name of the choreographer and also the company. They're based in Geneva. And I happened to be in Switzerland on a residency in 2015, which is where I encountered the choreographer and his work. And later, the next year, I was invited to do some research residencies with them, which involved, physicists from the CERN. It involved musicians who were making sound from earthquake tectonic plate data. It involved a filmmaker, it involved other dancers and choreographers. And so really a melding of science and the arts, and really working with scientists and artists in a room for many, many days. And of course, the luxury when you're working in, like the European countries, because of the money, they have the luxury of researching for the sake of researching. It's not necessarily project driven, needs to go on stage. It's just coming together and researching. So that was really special. And of course, we walked away with knowing that science and the arts are both pursuits of wonder, and we have more in common actually. And when we say research, we both research, artists research, scientists research. We have slightly different modalities of entering that and of recording that data, presenting that data, and processing that information. But yeah, there is heavy, often lifelong research that is going into our work. And that led to me then getting involved with their first virtual reality piece that they did, which was called VRI in 2017. So since then, this is, I think, the fifth project that I've done with them. VRI was virtual reality, which meant that it toured in different places. If you were the audience, for example, you would come, they would strap you up with the virtual reality kit, and you would be inside this world. And then you would see us come in, sometimes as giants, sometimes as tiny little things floating around, and you would be able to like interact as if you were immersed in that world. Yeah, and there are other projects that are augmented reality, where without immersing in that world, you can, so for example, on your phone, you can make a dancer appear and then place your phone in a way that the screen is looking at, say, a mountain or a coaster, and you make the dancer then dance like on your coffee cup or become larger than the building. So yeah, just, at the time, of course, they were saying this is the future of dance. And in terms of dance per se, that's very scary, because we do live in an organic live space, and I was like a bit threatened by that, because one doesn't want to be so restricted as to work only in a virtual reality. But of course, post pandemic, the fact that we can still work with dancers from different parts of the world. For example, in a couple of hours, I'll be streaming and we will be dancing in the virtual space that they've created for an audience that's signing in from Switzerland and from Barcelona. And we'll be dancing together in that virtual world. So they will experience me in India, Victoria in Australia, and three other dancers in Switzerland, as if they are in one new reality, which is very exciting, and it's very comforting to be able to work with people even across times and spaces.
I want to ask you, Diya, what are your politics as a contemporary dancer? Because you must have a kind of philosophy of your body in space and what it is you want to say. It's not like you want to say the same thing each time, but why do you put your foot into that space? And what is it that drives you? In whatever decisions and paths you take, but what is that? Is there a single force that drives you to continue to be a performer?
I mean, of course, as you asked this question, Anita, there was like 5 million possibilities and thoughts and glimpses of my own, more than my journey, my doubts and anxieties that came up. What's feeling relevant to share with you is that I no longer, except out of force of habit, but when I'm being conscious in my speech, I no longer refer to my audiences as audience. I prefer to use the word witness. So I don't know if this is my politics, but my practice around this now is that, and I think it's part of the reason why I sort of moved off large stage into immersive and intimate spaces, is that the bottom line is that when I perform for you, you're not seeing me in the way that you're actually seeing yourself. So I am here to not help, but to invite you to witness yourself in a way. And while I perform, I'm not passively being watched. I am constantly witnessing my audiences. So I usually create a situation where the performers are watching the audience, witnessing the audience as much as the other way around. And very soon, most audiences not just understand what's going on, they enjoy it, they yearn it. I think you yearn being witnessed. So, in Roshak Touch, we often have repeat audiences. They come back year after year. And I don't think they come just to watch, but I think they come because also they are being so closely witnessed by the performers and other audience members. So this is something I try to keep in mind. The other thing is contemporary dance happened to me like in my journey. I started off with something, I went somewhere else. When I was a child, Bharatanatyam, then jazz, ballet, then Kathak, Kalari. And so I still, I love all of these forms and I enjoy watching it or attending a class. Contemporary dance for me gave me more freedom than anything else. And because it by definition refuses to define itself, uh, I mean, that also means that one can take a lot of leeway and do something that is a little bit ambiguous or confusing, but it also means that you don't necessarily keep having to define yourself. In my performances, I think I don't like Rorschach is not contemporary dance. It's, for example, more movement theater. But we do use practices of contemporary dance to warm up the body, to find the partner work, to so it becomes for me more a tool, an entry point, something I do to stay happy. I love being in a contemporary dance class. I love teaching. I love learning. So this is my like joy. This is like, it's like I do yoga practice because it keeps me sane, but I'm not going to do Surya Namaskar on stage. But for sure, the fact that I do my yoga shows in my body and in my presence or whatever. So for me, contemporary dance has also become that. If it's not required, it won't show in the piece. It's really about listening to what does the work need and finding that vocabulary. Almost always the body is very central to what I'm doing. So even if it's film, even if it's live show, the body. So I'm observing my own work. I didn't make this happen, but observing my work, I see that, and of course, logistics is a big part of this, but I see that my requirements around light, around costume, around set are super minimal. I like that the audience really looks at the performer's skin and their sweat and their voice and witnesses, like, I don't know, their toenails or their tattoos or the scratches or whatever. I like that. I do like, I mean, once in a while I get commissioned to do something big and grand and it's great fun. But usually I don't go in with that aesthetic, as it were. And in terms of politics, I'm a feminist, but I would like to say, in the broadest sense of the word, I think it's about uniting seemingly separated energies. It's not about men versus women. It's not about heterosexual versus homosexual. It's not about making more divisions. Rather, it's about trying to lose divisions as much as possible. So so from being very aggressive many years ago, I'm trying to be more inviting around how to answer this very complicated question of finding some kind of wholeness, oneness, in a very binary gendered experience that we are living out. How do we? Yeah. So I guess I hope that's given you some insight into your question.
Thank you so much, Diya. Thank you so much for your thoughts, your time. And I look forward to continuing to follow you and see however you choose to develop and grow and soar and fly. Thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Boxed and Beyond 1 year later. From all these three women, you have listened and watched various points of view, why they think that this medium is not going to just go away, why it is going to be part of a new performer's experience. And I think it's really interesting to think about the audience as being a witness, as dancers becoming more inviting, less aggressive, more empathetic, because I think that is what has shifted perhaps. But to all three dance artists and filmmakers, thank you, all the best in all that you do, and to you, the audience, thank you for watching.